you can use AI for list building, how we can use it for letters of recommendation, and then some communication translation. And also, as we're going on, like, please feel free to put things in the chat. I'll try to put the links that I'm using in there as well. And then on this, I shared this presentation with HSCPD, so if they can also put it in the chat, then everyone can have access to the links as we go too. So before we start, I think one thing that I found really important and something I actually hope that my school would come out with a policy or a standard about is just kind of some guidelines about FERPA and AI. So just making sure that when we're using artificial intelligence, that we are staying FERPA compliant in terms of a student's educational rights and privacy. And making sure that we're really minimizing any identifiable data, using FERPA compliant tools when we can, and making sure we're in accordance with whatever our institution's guidelines are for AI, if yours has any. Ours does not have guidelines yet for teachers or staff in regards to AI, but I know that many school districts do or are coming up with them. And so just something to keep in mind. Another thing to keep in mind is the SOPA compliance. And so if you're asking kids to use a tool, if it's been vetted by your tech department, I forget what SOPA stands for, but I know for us, we have to make sure anything that we're having kids use or that we're having student data entered into is SOPA compliant for our district. And that can come up with some specific AI tools. So something that has been like really helpful to me this year is starting to use AI to help with list building, specifically with my juniors right now. And so I started experimenting with this probably in December when I started junior meetings. And I do feel like so many of us were really knowledgeable about as many things as we can be, but we can't be the end all knowledge of every single program out there for every single need or want of a kiddo. I feel really knowledgeable about the top like 5 to 10 most applied to schools by my students and what their programs are. And then sometimes if a kid comes in with a really unique desire that may be different than what the majority of our kiddos are looking for, that can be challenging. And I want to make sure that they're getting the same level of support and suggestions that other students are. I've also found this really helps me with blind spots that I might have, where I might be forgetting about a school in a moment, just in the busyness of our day, or where I may be, thinking that somewhere, making a judgment about a kid's admissibility, where really perhaps they do fall within the guidelines of a school. And so I found that this can reduce a little bit of my like bias, to be honest, too. So one tool, there's a couple of different tools, and then I'm going to show you. And so what I encourage you is while I'm doing it, if you have access to these tools, to also be modeling along with things that you want to search for. So ask Ava. Ava is a part of College Guidance Network, and this one you do need an account for, but it is a free account. And it's a very more interactive list building tool where it has you fill out a lot about a student. It'll also summarize them very often in reach, target, or likely. And then it'll give summaries and links for kids, which I find really helpful. This one I'll often do with a student who feels like really undecided and isn't giving me a lot. So we're going to do that one first together. So over here in Ava, if we click to Ava right here, if you're once you create a College Guidance Network account, and they're free for high school counselors. It's a little confusing because they have Ava AVA, the Ava community, and then EVA is their counseling assistant. So they can have this generate a school list. She's going to ask us some questions to find some perfect matches. So what subject or field of study is your student most interested in? So let's just say they want to do nursing. And do they have a dream job or long-term career goal or even a general direction within nursing? So this is where we can see like, oh, you would hope that they would see nursing and know it's a nurse, but it's not perfect. So it's a nurse. And then they're going to start asking us some questions that we very often see on like Big Future or within School Links or Naviance, Maya, whatever platform that you direct students to use for college searches. And so we can say small college. We can say, this is where it is a little bit, you don't have to answer just in their way. You can just say like not rural, for example. You don't have to list it. And so are there parts of the country they want to go or avoid? How far from home? You can say like 3-hour driving distance from Chicagoland. This is something I would love to see be developed for School Links, where kids get to do this as an interactive tool for them to use. And so if this is something really important to the student about what they want to do, maybe the student really wants to be in Greek life and faith-based supports. Then they can ask them about how they like to learn. And the student can answer that when they're with you. So if they really like small classes, for strong professor interaction. And so this one's much lengthier than what I do on ChatGPT or Perplexity. Um, and then kind of what they're looking for academically. So we can say like balanced for this student, perhaps. And then what kind of support students they might want. And we can say this is a first generation student, so they might need first generation college supports. Say if they does not matter, perhaps about whether it's a commuter or living on a campus school. Say they're open to any type. Then we'll say this student has a 3.4 GPA. We'll say test optional. Since my juniors don't have ACT scores back, or they're just coming back, I think maybe today. I got an email, but I haven't fully read it yet. Say 3 AP courses. So I'll tell it, and it's pretty smart in the fact that if you say, oh, they're Pell eligible or they're interested in HSI for a Hispanic serving institution, they will like know what that means. And then they'll give you a summary of what your student is looking for, which is what you have entered. And so what I always say about AI is your outputs are only as good as your inputs. So if you're not giving it a lot of detail, it's not going to give you as good of a result. And so this one is telling, just basically regurgitating back what we already gave it. And so if there's anything else we want to add, we can do that, and we can say like direct admit nursing because we didn't add that. Would say would like direct admit nursing. Say yes. We'll see how they interpret that because I should have just been, it's good. It's like, did I get that right? Yes. Anything you'd like to add before I generate the school list? Nope, didn't want to add anything else. So it looks like it's generating. And so again, this does take a little bit more time for a student. So while it's generating, I'd just be curious to know, and people can either pop in the chat or feel free to come off mute, if anyone has like used Ava before for the college list feature.
So I'm seeing in the chat, Rachel, that no, people haven't used it
Okay.
before.
Yeah, and it's something that I it's a longer one, right? It's like it is a lot easier for me to use ChatGPT or Perplexity because they're faster. But I do think with sometimes a student who you're like, oh, what are you looking for? And they're like, I don't know, having these direct questions to ask. Oh, great. So this is on CGN Roadmap. While this is loading, I'll put the link into um, the chat so that you can get it.
So really quick, I just want to try to like create an account. There are like very limited schools, so it looks like contacting the support network is our best bet to being able to create an account if your school is not listed. I'm dropping that email in the chat.
Yes, so that is one way to do it, but they will also that what I've learned is kind of from the aspect if you're creating an account as a student. So when you click, there's a different spot to create one as a counselor, and I have to find that um, in my email, but there is a counselor way to create an account, and it doesn't matter if your school is in there or not. Perfect. I think Ashley got the counselor one on there for the counselor free account. So Ashley, thank you for putting that in the chat. Because the general one, it is a tool that parents can also use. So it's feeling really slow to generate right now. Usually it is not that slow, and I don't know if it's just my computer while I'm also screen sharing and other things like that. So while that's loading, we can go to using kind of how we would use Perplexity or ChatGPT. So Perplexity, I just learned about from Brian Laporte, actually shared it with me recently, which I'm really grateful to him for because it shows you the sources of what you're using. So often worried about if I'm doing some list building or other research about where is the information coming from? Is this coming from a place of, a list on Reddit that kids came up with or that parents were discussing? Is it from a blog post? Is it, from some TikToker who's trying to get kids into schools with advice that we're like, oh no, please stop bringing that. That's not super what we want you to be doing. And so the Perplexity will at least tell you where they're gathering their information from. And so here we can kind of give that same information. So we can say, can you give me a list of, 7 colleges in the Midwest? We can do the same info actually. So we can say 3 hours from Chicagoland. This is where we're going to pretend I don't have typos and we're just going to leave them because AI does not care about your typos. 3 hours from Chicagoland with direct admit nursing, Greek life, financially supports Pell eligible students and admits students with a 3.4 GPA. And then right away, it'll start giving you options to look at, and then it will have the links at the top. So if I had given even a more specific input, I might have even gotten better results. But what I like about this is it doesn't just list the schools, it lists why it told you it was a good fit or not, or why it selected it. And so sometimes we know this, that they're telling you the overall acceptance rate and the GPA. And this is where I'll say AI cannot replace you because you know that for nursing, they're going to need well over what the average GPA is for a school. And that's where the influence of the counselor in those discussions with students and families is really important. But it'll tell you all of this information. You can ask for it to have their links as well. And then it gives you some ideas of additional questions to ask. So I do think sometimes after I've talked with students about some suggestions, I will use this as let me make sure I'm not missing anything, or there's not any ideas that I should have included on your list. And sometimes I learn about programs that I didn't know existed. I did this recently, and it showed up as North Park for engineering. And I was like, North Park doesn't have engineering. And apparently now they do. They have a general engineering program that I was not aware of. And so it brought a program onto my radar that I did not have and was not looking at for students. And for this specific student who needed to apply to a very specific list of schools to be eligible for the Dream US scholarship, like that was really helpful for us to know what we could add to their list, since it was a much narrower list of schools that they could choose from. So Perplexity, and then ChatGPT works really the same way. Let's see if it ever gave us our results. Ah, it did. Excellent. Okay, so now we can go back and see all of these results from Ava. And so it'll tell you right away in a summary your target schools and your likely schools. And it didn't give any reach schools. And that's something where with professional judgment, you might say, okay, actually, these are your reach schools that I'm going to share with you a little bit. But they'll give this list of schools. Then they'll talk about the type of the school, the reason they added it to the list, and then admissions data and a website. And so sometimes if you want to just copy and paste this info right onto a Google Doc for a student or in an email, you can. I love when they include the median earnings after 10 years. I know students and families are really wanting that a lot of the time, and for someone to just have it right there is a great tool. Again, something I would really like to see in School Links is for them to list the median earnings after 10 years, especially with their focus on the career side and what people are earning in specific careers. But this is just, I found to be like another really good tool for students, and something that I definitely earlier on in my career would have really, really benefited from. Because I did, I have College Finder and I have other books, and I would rely on colleagues and articulation and other professional development events where I would grow my knowledge base. But this is continually to grow can be another source to grow your knowledge base too. Any questions about these tools? And again, feel free to come off mute too. Are they things you could see yourself using in front of a student or with a student, or teaching them how to use it as well?
Rachel, just so you know, there is a grayish bar that is on the screen that is
Oh,
blocking some of the content.
okay.
So
Thank
it
you for
keeps
telling
popping
me.
up. And I think when you switch to sharing the website or whatever, it pops up on the screen and it's blocking some information.
Okay. Is it gone now?
No, it's hovering over list building with AI.
Oh, okay. You know what it is? It is the Zoom thing. It's just telling me about the screen sharing. It's all my, hold on, let's move that. I don't know how to hide that. Because I don't want to stop the
Does it
share.
have a message on it?
It just says you are screen sharing, stop share.
Is there a way to say okay or no, or like an
Nope, it just says stop share.
And you made it bigger.
Yeah, I
Now it's
know, because I
smaller.
was looking for a way to get rid of it because it has the slide control. You know what? Let me put it onto my other screen. Is that better? Is it gone?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
There's one little one still on the right, but the big one is gone.
No, I'm getting rid of that onto the other screen I have. Thank you,
Got it.
guys. This is again, I'm like, my school was always a Google Meet school. And so this is not something that I ever had before.
Okay.
And I'm still learning all of the Zoom tools and presenting. So
Okay,
appreciate
we're
that.
good.
Now we should be good to go.
Yes.
Like I need, this is why we have two screens. Okay. So any questions? And I know I in trying to fix that zoomed ahead. But any questions about list building? All right. So let's go on. So I want to talk about using AI to write letters of recommendation. But before we do, I had a really good conversation with another counselor a few days ago about some ethical concerns around it. And I think it's something that, maybe we should be talking about in terms of what kind of guidelines should we be looking for? Are there guidelines that are already out there? Does your school have guidelines? Um, I am on board with using it now. And I'll say that because I think people were already using it, just like our kids are already using AI. And sometimes they're not using it in the way that we want them to. They're not using it perhaps correctly or ethically or with fidelity. But since it's out there, and I had teachers already using it to write letters before we kind of taught them guidelines on how to do it. So now I do think it's okay for us to use it, but I also understand where people might say they're not comfortable with people using AI to help write letters of recommendation for several reasons. I do believe that now that it's out there, we have to teach people how to use it responsibly and how to use it correctly. So it's more of an edit tool or a rough draft tool, but not the only way that a letter is getting written. But some things I think, for us to consider, certainly around privacy to protect the confidentiality of personal information. And look at that typo. This is what happens when you have AI create a graphic for you and you didn't fully, proofread it. So I'll own that. It's a perfect example of considerations to use. Fairness, ensuring that your recommendations are free from bias, making sure that, just like we do with adjectives all the time, right? Am I using certain adjectives for my female students that I'm not for my male students? And same thing for different ethnicities. How am I being unbiased in my recommendations? And am I being fair in the way that I describe and talk about kids? Personalization. This has been an issue for years, right? Before AI, do not copy, find and replace a student's name has been the biggest challenge for us. I know with teachers in the past about each letter should really be unique and specific and tailored to that individual student. They've spent a lot of time on their applications and they deserve a quality letter that recognizes their personhood and everything that they've done as well. And then just making sure it's accurate. Are these tools really building up students perhaps more than they should? And being like very flowery adjectives that you would never use. And so that it's accurate and truthful, and then are they including actual factual things or really inventing things? So just something to consider, and was curious if anyone, before I show you some tools where you can use it, if anyone had already developed some guidelines for themselves or their schools developed guidelines, or if they have seen any kind of ethical conversations or guidelines out there about this with letters of recommendation.
I'll share that I have been hesitant to do AI for letters of recommendation. My team has used, I think, College Vine for letters of recommendation, and I think maybe I'm trying to come around to it a little bit more. Um, but for me, it was always a matter of, well, it should come from me. But then I realized I'm also getting my information I'm using from the students. Oftentimes, if I don't know a student very well, um, so I attended the Preparate conference with College Board last month, and I went to a session in which somebody from admissions from a university was talking about it, and I think made me feel a little bit more settled with using it because he said at the end of the day, it's like what you're trying to convey about the student themselves and not necessarily like the sentence structure in that type of situation. So he's like, that's not literally the biggest issue. So like using it is just a tool. And so I think that made me feel a little bit more comfortable. So I do think maybe I'll consider using it next year at during that college rush.
No, for sure. And I think thinking of it as a tool versus like the end all and be all is perhaps the right space to be in. I saw Christopher put in that District 214 has a plan with Gemini where no personal information is stored. So that's really helpful for like FERPA and SOPA compliance. If your district already has those things in place, in terms of then of like, of course, I would use Gemini as my tool to help me because my district has already then taken care of some of those issues around privacy. I do think too, I think about often, counselors who have a lot of students on their caseloads, and in the past maybe checked don't have enough time to write that student a letter of recommendation, and how if this can really shorten the amount of time that it takes that perhaps students who weren't getting letters of rec before, due to time constraints and a counselor having a high caseload, may be served better by someone being able to use AI and help in writing that letter. So this year, we did train our teachers on how to use AI to assist in writing letters of rec, because we thought if people are already doing it, let's make sure that it's not going to that like find and replace kind of level of letters of rec like we had in the past, where everything sounded really the same and really generic about a kid. So we did teach teachers to use AI to assist in letters of rec, and counselors at all as well. And there's two tools in really ChatGPT, Perplexity, Gemini. Any of the generators can also do this for you. Rec Letter Assistant is FERPA compliant, which I really appreciate about them. If you're using a tool that is perhaps not FERPA compliant, or you're not sure, or your district doesn't have what 214 has with that deal with Gemini where it's already not keeping student data, can always just put in like all these X's for students' names to protect their privacy and to make sure that there is no identifiable data. I highly recommend using your student questionnaire as an input for your letter. And so when you have students use a questionnaire for either their teachers or their counselors, which we require in order for a letter of recommendation to be written, you have to share the questionnaire with your teacher or counselor, depending on what you need, then that has been really helpful. Now, again, ethically, you have to fact check that. Like, did the kid say they cured cancer in their rec letter questionnaire? Like, probably not. So like making sure that what's in there is accurate before you enter it, or adding additional things that they left out. I have kids all the time who leave out things that they really should be kind of bragging about, or that help someone view them in a different context or light. And so I think that's still important. So we're going to do the rec letter assistant together, and we're going to use a questionnaire. So I have a fake questionnaire that I filled out as if Taylor Swift was a student in my English 3 class. And this is what I use with teachers, so I didn't change it for counselors. I'll be honest, this is much more thorough than what gets turned back into our teachers and counselors from kids. Like, they will give one-word answers. I really wish they would write more, because again, the better input they give us, whether I was writing a letter from scratch or using AI, was always better. So that's, something to think about and something that you may need to use more. But all I'm going to do is copy and paste this into the College Vine tool. So enter the name of the student. I'm just going to put XXX, even though this is a FERPA compliant tool. What is your relationship? I've noticed that this, sometimes if you put college and career counselor or teacher or counselor instead, like your title, doesn't always perfectly fix. So those are things to always go back and edit. What is the letter for? I always keep it to general college admissions, but if you had something really specific, you could change that. If a student didn't have a questionnaire to give you and your school does not do that, you can just fill in like some short notes to save yourself time where you're still doing the input. But again, like Nicole was saying, not worrying about the time it takes to write something with more thoughtful and intentional word choice and language, because then you can go back and edit to do that. So here I'm just gonna paste that whole brag sheet. I'm gonna add a few things that the student maybe didn't put in, that they're first gen, that they work 20 hours a week and watch younger siblings. And then this I'm not going to do right now because it would have student identifiable data, but I do use this with like one that doesn't, will take a student's out. You can match your writing style. So you can put a past letter in to kind of match it, which I feel feels a little bit more authentic. Then you can choose the length of your letter, can choose your tone. I will let you know the tone is way more positive than you mean it. If you put enthusiastic, It is, I'll show you because we can change it back and forth. It's like the best student that has like ever existed in the world. And then it lets you change whether you want to do bullet points, narrative, or subsections, which I like, so that you can still here have a more bullet point letter. This time the bullet point, if we do it, we'll hit generate. It really is not actually the way I would put it into a letter, right? But it lets you kind of choose what are the most important parts that you might want to include. And so they'll have an intro, they'll talk about the student, and you could read it and see, is this something that I would write about? Is this something that I would say? I feel like they've fixed their tone a little bit. This is not quite as flowery of language for enthusiastic as it used to be. But again, like this, is based on the students saying they were nervous about going to the writing center. And then it still will be able to, you can still use anecdotes, but you can also write an anecdote here. If there's something you want to share, you can just briefly write it and then it'll organize your thoughts for you. So again, this is way too long, but you could choose to do it. Can also see how it might look different in a narrative format with the exact same information. And I do think the narrative format is where it tends to become a little bit more over the top sometimes, or doesn't sound like you. Like I would not say like it is with great enthusiasm and respect. That just doesn't sound true to me. So I would change that. But it'll tell you again. And again, I do think they're always a little bit long. So the short sometimes is the better way to go, with still having a lot of detail. But it lets you run it multiple ways and to see different ways of doing that. And you can see how maybe a measured one might look different. And never, even in measured or constructive, it never comes off negative about a student. So this has been a huge tool. They do have an availability, which I have not used. I'd be curious to know if any other schools are using, where you can sign up and have your students do their brag sheets through CollegeVine. And so that there's an interface where it would like directly go to the counselor and kind of start that process already. We have not done that, but I didn't know if anyone else was doing that, where they had integrated where students were doing their brag sheet through CollegeVine. Yes, so Galit, they are. So that's where you would have to like have your district allow you to use that feature where students, if they're doing it on their side. I use it without ever logging in or using an account and not putting any student data in. But for the student side, that is correct. They would have to create an account. And so that's where it's something that your school would have to decide to do as a school and have them in place with SOPA. So I think that's perhaps why no one is using it that way yet. So that's one way to do a letter. It's been saving me so much time. I feel like with this, if a student does a good job on their, either if they do a good job on their questionnaire or I know them well, it has really helped me probably get down to 15 minutes per letter of rec. And so I'll copy and paste this then on our letterhead and then I'll edit it. So this is kind of my draft that I'll go around and edit, or I'll use different versions of the bullet points or the subsections. We can see what subsections looks like. And then with that, I'll just use what I think is the most salient and important pieces of that student in a letter. Any questions or comments about this tool, either in the chat or off mic? Have people been using CollegeVine? No. Okay. This has been probably like the biggest game changer in terms of, I think us actually seeing an increase in quality from our teachers on their letters of rec too, because there was less situations of find and replace. I think people were using the questionnaires more. We had way less teachers saying no to students once they had hit a certain number of rec letter requests. And so that was a helpful piece too, is people didn't feel so maxed out for their time that they were able to say yes to more students. Yeah. it has totally been a game changer. I agree. And again, use it as a draft, right? Like it's not your final draft. Or if you're writing your own letters and you can put it into and you want it to be edited and you won't take hours to edit, you write your rough draft and then you ask ChatGPT to help you edit. That's a whole nother way to go about using AI to help you with your letters. So CGN also has a tool that we can look at. Close the EVA panel. And here it just says compose a recommendation letter. It had, I was using it for a while before they started doing bullet points on CollegeVine because they didn't have that earlier this year, and now they do. So they'll let you choose other things as well. And then again, you can fill in specific things about a student. I just copy and paste their whole thing into summary or into any of the boxes. It works the same. And I hit generate and just gives you another option. And so I think it's more about personal preference about what style you like and what's matching your writing style the best. And so this, I do like how their bullet point one comes back better, to be honest, because it'll definitely do it by themes while still keeping it in a letter format. Has anyone used Ava before for the letters? No, okay. This basically, I just have Ava, like CGN roadmap is just pinned on my screen now for me to go to look at. And again, if anyone is a School Links user, we could just like all email our reps and be like, hey, could you do something like this integrated into School Links? Because that would be so great if they could integrate that where there was a rec letter questionnaire that then went right to an AI tool that helped counselors and teachers write letters and went right into helping you upload it. So just things that would be like really, I think, great for them to build out. Okay. Any questions or comments about rec letters or discussion points? Okay, so the last thing I wanted to talk about was communication translation and just a couple of other tools in addition to Google Translate, which I feel like is the most common translation tool, both for when emails go out to parents and when we want to use it, or just the drop down, how School Links uses Google Translation and other platforms. So one thing that I've really jumped on board with doing this year that has saved me a ton of time is having Canva first translate any of my flyers or documents into Spanish, and then I'll fix the grammar. I'll have someone else help me fix grammar because it takes it saves a lot of time. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. So in Canva, I have our college fair bingo card. So when we have a lunch college fair and every student gets this bingo card. So if they don't know what to ask, they can use these questions and then they have to turn in a full bingo card to be able to be entered into prizes. It's unfortunately just turned into more of, can you sign my bingo card to a rep so they can try to win an Awala water bottle, but the intent was to help them with some questions to ask. So if you want to, anything that you've already designed in Canva and you want to change it, you just go to resize and there's other tools. And so they have translates and you can select any language to translate it in. So I'm going to first do Spanish and we want it in like the original tone of voice and we can apply to page 1. So usually I'll make a copy and now it's translating everything to Spanish. I'll open it in a new tab. I have to zoom in, but now it's done. And so I have to do some formatting and it may not be perfect because again, like you have to like scooch some things around. The grammar may not be perfect, but it's already there for you right away, accents, everything. And so this has been a really useful tool for different documents. And again, then you just have to do a little bit, still not perfect on fixing your formatting, but it is getting better, I would say, than how it was before. So that's one. And then if I wanted to undo that, let's see, or I want to then again, you know, translate it to another language, you can just keep doing it to everything else. So if I wanted to put it into Polish, which would be the other language I would need to translate for at my school most often, it'll do that as well. So this has just been like really helpful. So any invitation I send out to families is now in every language, and it's been great for languages I don't speak. So I do not speak Polish or Ukrainian or every language that is in our multilingual department for students. And so it may not be perfect, but I'd much rather have a student be able to participate in an activity or know about an event, even if the language isn't perfect, if we don't have someone in the building who can do the written translation. And so this has been a great way to be able to do that on Canva. And it'll change it. Now it's Spanish, Polish, but it'll change it for you. But I always do recommend like making a copy first, just in case it changes your original. Anyone else been using Canva for translation?
I did not know it did that. I'm so excited. So now I will be using Canva for
Yeah,
translation.
it's like a really easy one to do. And it's a little hidden, right? Because like no one would think to click resize and then find translation. I wish they made it a little bit more apparent in their UX. I think more people would use it if it was, you know, had like a language or a translation button at the top. But it is there for you to use. Okay, and then DeepL I use a lot. So I use this more than Google Translate. So every junior and senior, but every junior gets a one-on-one meeting with either myself or their counselor to talk about their plans for after high school. And then after the meeting, we have a Google Doc with notes, and I share it with the student, the counselor, and their parents. But we have a lot of different languages spoken. So I want the note to go home on that Google Doc in the family's language. And so I do speak Spanish, but my Spanish is like grammar is through like level 2 in high school. So it's not the best. So I'll maybe write my message in Spanish here, and then it will translate it and fix my grammar. Or I can write what I want to say and put it into any language. So if I met with a student, I could say, like, hi, Anna. It was great to meet with you today to talk about your future plans. Your next steps are shared on this sheet. And so it'll do that. If you do DeepL right, it'll also then do the same thing, but like make it better. So it's a little bit different where its goal is not to just translate, but to actually make it better to do. So I do think the translation on DeepL is a little bit better than Google. But it's nice to be able to, oh, I lost what I wrote, translate it to a lot of different languages, quick copy paste. I kind of keep my standard message up there about what I share with parents, and then I can change it to whatever language I need to, ready to go. The other thing I really love is you can translate files on DeepL. Now on the free account, you can only do a certain amount a month. So the presentation that we just went and did to all junior US history classes, I can now, like, I downloaded those Google Slides. Oh, let's see. Thought I downloaded them.
But it was like so I was just thinking,
So you can upload it and then translate it. I can't find what I thought I downloaded earlier. So let me see if I can find it off screen to be able to look. Okay. But basically you can upload anything. It's not really working right now for the file that I had. But if I selected something from my computer And I can just say, perfect, junior counseling planning for after high school, found it. Detect language, translate it to Spanish. It's now going to translate my whole PowerPoint for me. And then I can have that, save it as a PDF to share with parents in multiple languages so they can see everything that their student received. And so now it just opened it. And this was an ISAC, let's see, here it is. So now my whole program that was in English is now done in Spanish. And again, I might need to change some formatting because it's going off screen. But this has been a game changer in making sure students and parents all have access to the same information. So again, you have to do some formatting, but total game changer, especially for languages that you may not have. I don't know if you guys can see the window, the PowerPoint file open or not.
We
But it
can't
did.
see it open,
Okay.
Rachel. We're still looking at your regular.
Oh, weird. Okay. So let me see, because it's not a window, if I can share it instead. Thank you. Okay. There we go. Now can you guys see it?
Yes.
Okay. So it'll put like a DeepL thing first, which you can delete, but it in like a minute or less translated my whole PowerPoint. And again, you can see formatting not perfect, but easy to fix and just much easier to share with families to all have the same information and have that same access to what's going on in the classroom, because we do share our presentations out with families in my newsletter after we go in to classes. So that I think has been like really, really, really helpful for us. Any questions about DeepL, or does anyone else have any other Translate to? Oh, I didn't know Google Translate did documents as well.
It does, and it was a shocker when I used it, and it also does PowerPoint. So like
Oh.
you have to, like, if you do something in, because we're a Google school too at CPS. So when you download, like let's say you're working in Google Slides and you can download your presentation into PowerPoint and then upload it to Google Translate, but you have to go to the actual Google Translate website. You can't just enter in the box, like when you're on the.
It's like the separate website, not like when you
Yes.
just Google
Yep.
Translate. Got
When
it.
you click on the link, you're able to do docs, PowerPoint, and whatever. I think some PDF, don't quote me, but that has been so helpful to us because we do have a big Spanish speaking population, to be able to then take usually with the PowerPoint that then translates, I'll upload that and change it to a Google slide so I can then easily copy and paste over into the English version too. So.
Okay, great. Awesome.
And
Thank
then
you. I
Rachel,
did not know that.
we have a question in the chat for you that is DeepL free?
There is a free version of DeepL, and then you can pay to get more, but it gives you like a maximum amount. But now I'm going to honestly try out Google because Google is free. So Nicole, thanks for sharing that. I did not know. I've only used that first part. I'd never gone to like the separate website. I honestly
I found
didn't
it on
even
a
know
whim.
that was a thing.
I found it randomly.
I mean, that's why I love these kind of sessions, because we learn from each other, right? So anyone else using any other unique apps or websites or tools for translation for communication?
Sorry for logging in late. Can you tell me when I again? I saw that question and what part?
So I saw in the chat, Panina put in that ISB made a connection with Magic School AI. I don't know anything about Magic School. Panina, could you share more about that?
So I honestly have not used it much at all, but when I went to the IACAC conference, I went to the AI session, AI 2.0, that Tracy Flowers and I want to say it was Stacy Schloud put on, and they discussed like Magic School. Stacy showed us like her favorites.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
saw like literally yesterday that ISB has like this connection now with Magic School, but I don't know what that means for like districts, like how much we have to pay because it is free. But I don't know if like ISB put together a FERPA thing or anything like that. So I just saw that yesterday. So I can't really speak to using it yet. But maybe someone else here has.
So I think just before we take like some last questions or comments, just remembering that your output with AI is only as good as your input, to fact check your information because sometimes it's outdated, like especially if you're using the free chat GPT, it's older, it may not be all inclusive. And then also to just make sure you're SOPA and FERPA compliant and following your district's policies. But any questions? And I saw a couple in the chat. So it's Canva's under the resize button. And then, so it looks like this in Canva, just under resize, and then you have to scroll a little bit. So sometimes it's under magic switch, which can transform the document too. And then it looks like at Grace Lake, they use Magic School AI a lot. And it's very teacher friendly and helps with IEP and 504 goals, which is great. So, yeah. But if anyone else has any other questions, otherwise I want to be respectful of people's times because it's that time of year and there's, it's the 100 days of May or Maycember or whatever you want to call this busy, busy time. So thank you guys for taking the time and for sharing your knowledge too, because I definitely came out of this with some more tools to use and I really appreciate that.
Well, Rachel, we also definitely want to thank you so much for being able to provide this, presentation that was so useful and beneficial. I know I had a tech issue at the beginning, so I couldn't hop on when you first got started, but we are definitely appreciative to you for being here. I know you shared the presentation and we can have Erin share that out. If you just want to make sure like the share settings are
Yes, I'll fix
for
that.
view for anyone, that would be great.
Yeah, because it's definitely restricted right now. So
Yeah.
sorry about that.
That's okay. I was gonna post it in the chat when you sent it, but I was like, I didn't want to interrupt.
Oh, it's fixed now. I can put it in too.
Okay, perfect. Yeah.
There
And
is one
then-
more question, Nicole, before you
Yep.
do your closing.
So
And
I just put the
then-
deck in. It should be viewable with anyone on the internet now. I don't know about your schools. Fenton's like very tight with who we can share things with.
CPS too. Is it Dania? I don't want to say the name wrong.
Yeah. I have a form that I would need to get signed for my university. Also, I would like to say that this was very informative. I didn't know what I was coming into, like I just got the email about it. Oh, sorry.
I don't know. Nicole, do you know anything about like professional development hours? Or anything
Yeah,
like
that's
that?
the next thing I was going to say. Erin is going to also be sending out the follow-up. She's the executive director for IACAC. And so she normally sends out the follow-up to the meetings and webinars and PD, and she will send the hours post meeting. Not necessarily immediately after, but give her a couple days. And if you don't hear back, you can reach out to her.
Okay, because I was given a form that would need to be signed. So I don't know
If you
who
want to scan it and send it, if you have Erin's email, you can also send it to our HSCPD at IACAC email, and maybe we can try to help figure out where that could go for you.
Okay.
Because I assume if they're just trying to prove like you attended, like that's what and it's IACAC.org. That's probably what you would receive from Erin, but just in case we can